Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Housing for Good. I'm Karolyn.
And I'm Chris.
All right, Chris. Today, we are not really doing a year-end review. We kind of did that last time.
Yeah, we did that last time.
We wanted to talk about what we've learned over the past year from the guests we've had.
Yeah.
All the amazing conversations and talk about best practices.
Yeah, this is going to be great. I do want to bring something up. You know, we kind of skipped the news a little bit, but this morning, a friend of mine, Lori from Lindsborg, you know who you are.
Yes.
She sent me something over from Dave Ramsey, which is really good. I don't know if this was a podcast or an interview he was doing, but he was talking about what has happened to all the homes. And so you have to go listen to it, but a couple things that I picked out of there was, number one, he was saying that we have people, corporations specifically from China and Japan, maybe it was just Japan, who were coming to America and buying groups of homes and using them as rental properties. So now a first-time home buyer like you and I were back in the day,
Yeah.
I bought a home that cost like $30,000. That's impossible now, but that was my first home that I could afford, and I grew from there, obviously. And so that's not possible for young families. That's not possible for the people who are working in, say, the fast food industry or somebody working at some of the, you know, like Walmart or Dillon's or those type of places where maybe that's, you know, they don't make as much.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm not going to say what they make or whatever, but
Yeah.
So anyways, and then the second thing that he brought up was 20 years ago, we didn't have a problem with Airbnbs, and now people are buying tons of homes. And so those are two huge ways that homes are leaving the market.
Yeah.
And not being made available for first-time home buyers or low-income people or even seniors. You know, they're pushing up the cost of housing. So anyways, I thought that was interesting and kind of connects a little bit what is causing homelessness, and I think this is part of that.
Well, and this is something that you and I have been talking about for a while. And it's not just that the homes are not available or how expensive they are, but the upkeep of the homes for seniors that are staying in their home because they can't afford to go someplace else. That takes the starter homes off the market.
Right.
But then the upkeep of those homes by the time the seniors have to leave for their assisted living or whatever, they don't have a choice, then there's so much work that needs to be done on that house that the housing stock is not good. And then you're asking yourself, is it worth it even to dump the money into the house, or would it be better to tear it down?
Right.
So, yeah, we're killing ourselves with the first-time home buyers, whether that's, you know, like you said, people low-income jobs or kids that are getting out of college and wanting someplace to live. So we have to come up with a solution for it. And I don't think it's going to be one particular angle.
No, I think it's going to take a lot. And it was funny because Dave Ramsey was talking about, you know, he doesn't believe in doing anything that hurts our economy, that there has to be a free market, and that's really important. However, we never counted on the fact that corporations and maybe Japan is coming in here buying swaths of homes and then using them for rental properties and taking them out of the market that is really negatively affecting the American people. So anyways, okay, so today we're going to talk about best practices from our guests and some of the things that we're doing with the Oak Harbor cottages and all the projects and the things that we're working on.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about this. You know, what we learned along the way, though, there's no silver bullet, that one thing doesn't work for everybody.
Yep.
And that it's going to, everybody has their own journey. And so we have to respect what that journey looks like. Some people are going to take longer to get there than others. Yeah. And we have to figure out a way to walk alongside those people. So go ahead. What you got? What do you got first, Karolyn?
Okay. Well, I'm just going to say that over the last year, we have talked to some really amazing people. And it's been everything from advocates to developers, policymakers, service providers. I mean, good grief. It hurts my brain to even try to think of all of them, but I do have a list here.
I see that list.
So one of the things that kind of goes along with what we were just talking about was that we had SCED come in and talk to us. Now, this is one of the programs that we talked with that are for homeowners. Do you remember them?
Yep, I do. SCED was really great. They've been around a really long time, and it stands for South Central Kansas Economic Development District. By the way, if anybody wants to know what that is, because it is a good resource for homeowners and people that need weatherization. So it's a great resource.
Yeah. The other thing that SCED did was they partnered with Hutchinson and Reno County, and they were able to go in and help them update and rehab some of the homes that needed to work in that community, in that county. And so they are a partner for home ownership and for development of homes. Another program that we have been helping people with recently is from Rural Development. And this is the grant where they can get $10,000 given to them in the form of grant money, but there's also a low-interest loan. And so I want to get somebody from Rural Development on our show, and I'm hoping to do that in this next year. But they were limited on their outreach and being able to travel, so we'll have to work on that.
So I want to start with best practice number 1, and what it is housing is the foundation. It's really important. We have to start with housing because nothing else that we do is going to matter unless a little kid has a place to sleep and a parent has a place to be able to stay and to be able to just live their life normally, to be able to cook and just live life normally. So that has to be number 1. And I think that for the most part, everybody agrees with we have to put people in housing and whatever that looks like, whether it's a tiny home or whether we start them in a shelter or whether we have rental housing. Housing is the number 1 thing that we have to do, that everybody across America needs to figure out. How do we get more housing? What does that look like? Whether it's government assistance, whether it's volunteers like we've done, whether it's a mixture of different grants that are available out there, everybody needs to have housing. So that's number 1.
Well, and what does it do to your perspective when you have a key to a door that you can lock and that you are there safe and you don't have to worry about necessarily what's going on out in the world or in your neighborhood? You have a door you can lock and you are safe. So the guests that we spoke with, consistently emphasized that housing is the foundation, not the finish line. Permanent housing should come before sobriety, employment, or readiness. But what kind of housing comes before those particular things matters.
It has to be a continuum.
It does.
And we all fall within that continuum. So some people, the homelessness, we have shelters for that. Then we need to move on to permanent supportive, and then we need to move on to rental properties, and then hopefully for some families that's going to be home ownership. But everybody falls within a different place within that continuum. And so how can we make sure that we have something for every level that somebody needs, whether you're a senior that needs assistance to stay in your home or you're somebody that's experiencing homelessness. We have to make sure that we have something available all the way through that.
Well, and the transitional housing is huge when it comes to somebody just getting out of addiction issues or just out of prison. They need to be able to have a place that they can call home, but yet maybe they're not ready for all of the responsibilities and everything that come with having your own place and paying your own bills. And so there's a learning curve that goes on to get people ready for that.
So the key takeaway is housing is the intervention that makes all other interventions possible. Housing has to come first, and then we have to continue to move forward. We can't just put somebody in housing and say, oops, I hope that works for you, because that's not the end of it. That's the beginning.
Well, and we have folks that we work with for up to 2 years, where it is legitimately documented that we are working with these families. But I can tell you that I have clients that I'm no longer paying their bills or helping them with their bills for rent and utilities, but I'm still meeting with them. I'm still talking with them. They still need somebody to come along beside them to make sure that they're making good decisions, that they have somebody that's in their corner in case they run up against something that they're not prepared for.
And if you think about it, if you've had to rely on other people so much in your life, that's scary. to all of a sudden just be left out there by yourself and go, oh, now what do I do?
Yeah.
You know, you've learned all the lessons, just like when you're growing up, you've learned all the lessons, but when it's up to you, it is very nice to have somebody still walking beside you and supporting you as you continue to move forward.
Yep.
So best practice number 2, this one I loved, and we had Otis Odell on. This was one of the ones that he talked about, but design for dignity and belonging, making sure that what we're designing really helps people through their trauma.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites, actually.
I know. I loved him too. I loved how we realized we were doing what we needed to be doing without even realizing it, only because it felt right to us. We both had trauma in our background. And so just to realize that you are doing it exactly right by following your instincts and putting people's dignity ahead of everything else, making sure that, you know, they know that they can live there. And not only are you safe, but we want to make sure that whatever you need is that we're able to start addressing that and take care of that.
And that people feel valued. I think that's number one. It's hard to get past trauma or when you've experienced something difficult. If you don't have any dignity, that makes it really, really difficult. So I think that's the part I love too, was that he really stressed trying to provide dignity for people so they felt like they were cared for and that they mattered.
Yeah.
And that is, even for children, when kids feel valued, they do so much better than when they're treated poorly or abused. So,
well, and you know, that kind of goes right along with what we see with domestic violence and people that have been abused. It takes a while for them to lose their sense of who they are. You know, they get beaten down over and over and over. And so then when they come to us and we're trying to help them move past that, to get the outcome we want, you have to give them back their dignity and their self-worth. And then once they discover that, then, you know, then they can start to make great strides in what they need to do next. So, yeah, I love that part of what we do.
So, the trauma-informed design, just so you out there, we're talking about it. Maybe you don't even know what we're talking about, but it has to do with lighting, privacy, noise reduction, beautiful spaces, open areas, gardens. All of those things are part of a trauma design because they make you feel comfortable and safe.
Yeah.
So people heal faster in environments that feel human, safe, and welcoming. That is really the key takeaway from that. And then from there, you can move forward. It's pretty cool. So best practice number 3, this was good one too, is local problems require local solutions. So basically, we cannot copy and paste any solution to any community. You can take a model and then make it fit where you live.
Yeah, you have to tweak it. Yep. And this came out in a lot of our conversations because we spoke with people from all over. But, you know, rural homelessness looks way different than it does in the big cities. For one thing, you have limited housing, fewer services, transportation. Oh, my gosh, what an issue that is. And so, yeah, just trying to figure out what your community needs. And, you know, honestly, when we started the emergency shelter, you had seen little houses in another state as you were traveling. And you know, you saw them, well, what they're doing with their little houses is not what we're doing.
No, not at all.
And so, but taking that idea that, you know, hey, this is working, it's providing housing, how can we tweak it for what we need?
So community buy-in is strong as well. It's really important. That's another reason that you have to come up with a model that works for your community, because you have to have local buy-in for whatever you're doing. I think, except for the 2 or 3 people that yelled at me in the street, most everybody else was so respectful and so supportive of what we were doing because we had community buy-in and we worked really hard. Part of what we do is education. We have to educate the public. Yes, this is a problem. Here's a solution, but it's going to take all of us to make it work. And so I think having that community buy-in is really, really, really crucial, and that's why you have to have local solutions, because if you try to copy what they're doing in LA or Chicago, they're going to roll their eyes at you or whatever. So the key takeaway from that is effective housing strategies are rooted in local data. So that's our data, not somebody else's, our local culture, what is acceptable in our community, and the relationships. We have lots of relationships that we have throughout McPherson County that make all of this possible.
Yeah. Okay. And then the best practice number 4 was partnerships over silos. So the one thing that we kept hearing over and over and over is collaboration. You have to have people in the community helping you with the work you're doing. You cannot do it by yourself. And it takes everybody doing what they are able to do.
Yeah, homelessness is a systems issue. It has to do with the way that we're processing and doing things, and that's what's causing this. I mean, people fall through the cracks, or they make a little bit too much money, and now any support they had has now disappeared, or they need help managing, trying to get through the system. People think that people are lazy and they don't want to work, but I can tell you that system is difficult to manage.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you're somebody who's homeless and doesn't have the things they need, like a birth certificate or Social Security card or any of those things. It's very difficult. So it is a systems issue, and that's what we're trying to correct, is the system that people have to go through to be able to get to where they need to be.
Yeah. One story that I just loved when we were having our meetings on the housing task force, and we brought everybody together, and, the city is building housing, and they never talk to a realtor.
Yeah.
The people that are supposed to sell the houses never consulted with them, never talked with them.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So then you have to step back and ask yourself, okay, we have all these people here. Who isn't at the table?
Right.
And that is another question that's come up over and over and over, is who's not sitting at your table?
Right. It's really important. And I do think they brought some people in, but I think they were people, again, you have to talk about local solutions, not a solution from a bigger community. So for us, that's Wichita, Topeka, Kansas City. Well, their solutions aren't going to work here. If you're trying to build some housing that people in our community want, you need to talk to the people in our community who actually know. I think at this point they have now began to bring those people in, but how much further ahead may they have been had they have done that in the beginning? We can't work in silos. We have to ask for help. Personally, I don't like asking for help. Do you?
No, I don't like asking for help.
I like
Are
doing
you kidding
things
me?
by myself, but I learned
along
along the way that unfortunately I can't do it all.
Yeah.
I'd like to figure that out. But
Well, the other thing that we have going on, and I'm sure it's everywhere across the United States, but Lindsborg is so different than Canton. And Marquette is completely different than McPherson. And so what housing we build in different communities, the community needs input as to what they want. So, it's important.
Yeah, and that's really important too, that we do that. Developers and advocates working together instead of separately. That's why we're doing all these McPherson County meetings.
Yeah.
We've got to get the right people at the table, and it's been a challenge because everybody wants, kind of like us, they want to do their own thing without collaborating and talking to the different groups. So anyways, so that's that. No single organization can solve homelessness alone, but aligned partners can. So if we can all work together in our own areas and our own cities and states and counties, we can help solve part of this problem. Okay, number 5. What's number 5? Prevention matters.
Yeah, prevention. Stop homelessness before it starts.
And we're doing a lot of this work. I feel like we're doing a lot of this work at McPherson Housing Coalition.
Yeah, I do too.
With our home repairs, eviction prevention, stabilization services. Some of the things you were talking about earlier. Our Brush Up Mag program does that.
Yeah.
That program from Rural Development does that.
Yep.
Keeping our families stable so they become housed and stay housed.
Yeah. So our mission, we've changed our mission statement this year.
We did.
From homelessness to home ownership and everything in between, means we just don't respond to the crisis. We work to keep people housed in the first place.
Prevention doesn't always get the spotlight because it's not the fun thing, but it should.
Yeah.
If we could work harder to prevent a lot of the mess that we have now, I think that's why we started Oak Harbor Cottages and why we've done what we're doing, because we saw a problem was developing. So we wanted to fix it, or at least work on it, and before it became a problem.
Yeah. We've learned a lot in the years that we've been McPherson Housing Coalition. And so how we do things now is a little different than how we did when we started. But, if we can work with people to keep them from being evicted and help them with their utilities before they get turned off, and home repair programs before, the house starts falling apart. Early intervention with seniors, disabled adults, families. Keeping somebody housed is cheaper than rehousing them, and it cuts down on that trauma that people experience anytime, when you're evicted, it's trauma. When the sheriff shows up at your door, it's trauma. And just having to move your stuff into storage because you're going to be evicted, that is trauma. Believe me, I know all about moving furniture lately. It's trauma.
And it's not because you're being evicted. It's because you sold something and you had to move the stuff.
Exactly.
But it's a lot.
Put a basement in and you got to move everything out.
It's terrible.
It's a lot. And so then you add to that what is truly going on where you can't pay your bills. You don't, I laugh about it because it's been an ongoing thing. But
you sold that property last summer.
We sold that property last summer.
You're still dealing with your stuff.
Yes, I know. It's nuts. Okay, so the key takeaway from that is that the best homeless solution is preventing homelessness altogether.
Yes, that's important. So, and then best practice number 6, and then remember, all of this stuff is either something that we're doing with the Housing Coalition or information that we grabbed from interviewing all the different people that we've had on the show over the last year, however long, year and a half. I don't even know how long it's been. But
year and a half.
Data and stories go hand in hand. So it's really important that you collect the data, especially if you're a provider out there and you're like, how am I going to prove to these people that I'm trying to get money from that it matters? Well, first you need data. Like we can show that McPherson Housing Coalition adds $3 million to the local economy. Trust me, that opens some eyes, especially those people that are writing those checks or people at the State House or people in Washington, D.C., when they see that what you're doing, and you have data to back it up, is helping and pumping money into the local economy, you can't argue with that.
Yeah. Well, and we keep data on the folks that we work with that we help. Nobody sees names and that kind of stuff, but they do see the ages, the demographics of the individuals, the race, gender, those kinds of things, because HUD is trying to figure out how do we stop homelessness to begin with. So they want all this data. But what really gets to people is when you tell them about Mary, who with her 2 kids was sleeping in her car and the kids were sleeping with her parents, and you're able to get them into a home, and Mary can get a job, and now she can support her children. And by the way, she's also getting child support because you're able to hire an attorney. Those kinds of services for a person to improve their income every month and get the support they need is tremendous. If you can't afford an attorney, you can't afford an attorney.
Right.
And you may or may not get your child support because of that one issue. So, yeah, it all makes a difference and it all helps go hand in hand. Stories build understanding and community support. Remember when we would go to the churches and we would just be telling them what we wanted to do and why, and all of a sudden you have to quit looking at a certain person in the audience because they're crying.
Oh.
And you're going to start crying too if you don't look away.
Yeah.
But that's what motivates people to do something, is when it gets to them emotionally what this other person is going through.
Yeah, so the data builds credibility with funders and policymakers. It's really important. For us, 75% of our families are doing really well. Do well. And we do track that at least 2 years after they've left our program.
Yeah.
So we know that we're having really good success because we're actually following these best practices. I don't know how we figured it out, but we just have been doing a lot of this through research and experience. And, experience is the best teacher. When you fall down on your face and then you pick yourself back up and you're like, well, that didn't work.
Yeah.
Now what am I supposed to do? So it's really important that you build these best practices if you're out there and you're a provider and you're trying to figure out, or I've got people calling me all the time that are starting agencies. I have somebody meeting with, I think this week or next week, I guess it's Friday, want to know what we're doing. Well, follow these best practices. Here's the things you need to do. Follow along with this and you're going to be successful.
Yeah. Okay, so the key takeaway from that particular best practice is that numbers justify the work, But stories sustain the work. Say that fast 5 times.
Yes.
Numbers justify the work. Stories sustain the work.
Both are very, very important.
Mm-hmm. And then best practice number 7 is servant leadership. So listening and humility and stewardship. We want to make sure that we are showing through our work what people are seeing us do for other folks.
Yeah. So servant leadership has to do with serving other people and being more concerned about serving them than yourself. It's really big in the leadership right now. I'm taking a lot of courses right now, and servant leadership is listening, humility, and stewardship. So you have to take care of the things that you're responsible for, making sure you look out for the organization, for the people that you're in charge of, for your staff, for everybody else, but at the same time doing it with care and humility. And so that's really, really important. And it's not about control. Servant leadership isn't about controlling, but it really is about being responsible. And so that's what one of the things that I heard from a lot of our providers, the people that came on our show, was they were truly passionate about what they were doing and care for the people that they were wanting to help. They truly had a passion for it and cared, and they put people above themselves, not to the point of being where you're allowing people to run over you.
Yeah,
I'm not promoting that whatsoever. I'm not saying that you should have a line in the sand where you say, wait a minute, this is not okay. You're not going to call me at 1 o'clock in the morning just because you needed a towel or something.
Yeah.
Not that.
Yeah.
But being passionate enough that you care about the people and you care about the people that work with you and your team. And so servant leadership is really important. And if you haven't read up on that, I really encourage you to read up on servant leadership, because those are the best and the strongest leaders that can get us through this crisis that we have across the nation.
Yeah, yeah. I will say that, the folks we spoke with, that listening to the people they're serving to figure out how to do it better were some of the most effective in the roles that they have, regardless of what that is. And there was also just this really strong sense of humility. They don't even realize how big an impact they're making on people, because they're just going at it every day to help as many people as they can.
Yeah, the key takeaway is the most effective leaders see themselves as stewards, not saviors. So don't get into that savior complex where you just think you're going to fix it all and do it all. You've got to have a good team. You've got to take care of your people. You have to listen well. You have to have an open communication with everybody. That's really important, is to be a steward and not try to be a savior.
Yeah. Okay, the next best practice was sustainable funding over short-term wins. This is something that we've been talking with, something we've been dealing with, for what? About the last 4 to 6 months, where you've got the government shutting down, you don't know if grants are coming through, and how do you get different funding sources to keep your organization moving and helping, so that what you want to do doesn't die because the purse string is gone all of a sudden.
Yeah, you can't rely on one source of funding anymore. I mean, you need a whole bunch of different fundings. We have grants, we have private donors, we have foundations, we have rental income, we have a lot of in-kind donations for different things.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to do a really good job, especially you out there that have a passion for this, but maybe you don't have a business background. Go find somebody who understands money.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to figure out all these different money streams to keep that mission going and becoming stronger. It's really, really important that you do that.
Yeah, the startup grants matter. But sustainability is what keeps housing solutions alive long term.
Yep.
And you have to diversify that funding and have strong relationships and operational capacity long after everything gets started. But like I said, with the questions about the government and stuff, it's been really scary the last 4 to 6 months. And I think that you have done an excellent job in keeping your eye on the fact that we have to have a diverse way of funding this, and we have to look at different income streams to make it sustainable long after you and I are gone.
Yeah. Yeah, so its longevity comes from sustainability. It's just like your personal finance. A lot of people have found out over the years that having one job is not probably going to cut it. You and your spouse are probably going to work, or you're going to have rental income. If you look at a lot of people who have a lot of money, that's what they've done over the years. Or maybe they have their money in a 401k, and that income, then they have that interest. And so it's really important that you run it like you would your personal finances, making sure that you have enough funding to be able to pay for your staffing, because there's all these expenses that people don't think about.
Yeah. Well, and you have said, we're a nonprofit, but we have to run it with the mindset of a business. We may not be in it to make a ton of money, but we have to run it with the mindset of a business because, like you said, you can't get yourself in a financial situation and then think that you're going to get bailed out. You have to be responsible about what you're doing. And so the key takeaway from that is longevity comes from sustainability, not urgency alone.
Okay, so we're getting close to the end of this. Community resistance is best met with education. I think this is really important because people don't want this stuff in their backyard. I remember up where I live, they were going to put a low-income housing tax credit apartment complex right across from where I live, and the neighborhood was going crazy. Well, I didn't care. It's an apartment complex, whatever.
Yeah.
But they had petitions and everything else. Well, that happened because they didn't get out there in front of it and explain what they were doing. Had they have done that better and people understood what they were building, well, by the way, my neighbors got it pushed down the street a little bit.
Yeah.
They made them move it because the people are like, we're not putting up with this. But it's really important because NIMBYism is real.
Yeah.
With the Oak Harbor cottages, I think I was only yelled at 3 times in the street because everybody else was supporting what we were doing, and we tried really hard to get out there with the story before we put one shovel in the ground.
Yeah.
Before we did anything. And so by the time it happened, and now the neighbors are like, this is the most coolest thing we've ever seen. It's beautiful. It's well maintained.
Yeah.
You keep it up. We don't see people just wandering around like most shelters are because people live within their own home. They're not wandering around unless, their kids are out playing or something.
Yeah. Yep. And so, fear comes from misinformation. You've only got part of the story, or you didn't have any of the story. And so, transparency and early engagement reduced our opposition, and success stories changed minds faster than arguments. So the next strategy is that hope is a strategy. Almost every guest returned to this theme, whether explicitly or implicitly. They just came back to the fact that you have to give people hope. Hope is what drives us all to do better, to get up tomorrow morning, to keep moving.
Yeah, people experiencing homelessness are resilient, capable, and worthy. And that message needs to get out there because living out on the streets is not easy. So they have to be resilient, they have to be capable, and that they're worthy. And so that's really important that we change things with hope and we get rid of that ugly stigma that is out there. Hope isn't naive, it's essential infrastructure. So that really is the key takeaway. And then the final is closing. Hope is infrastructure, and we need to be able to tie all of these things together, all the different things that we've talked about. As far as, trauma-informed design and keeping people informed and what all these things that we've been talking about, housing as the foundation and prevention matters, all of those things have to be tied together in order to make this work. So if you are listening today and you want to do this or you are doing this, you have to take those key factors. There's a lot of them. And bring them together, and you can have a successful agency and be able to do exactly what you're wanting to do and bring people out of homelessness.
Yep. And the thing I love is every guest we had on our podcast, they reminded us of one thing, that people are worth the work. Hope isn't a bonus, it's infrastructure. And when we build housing, community, and systems with that belief, change becomes possible.
Ending homelessness is not about building alone. It's about people, partnerships, purpose, and persistence.
So, if you have listened to our podcast and you would be interested in being on one of our podcasts, have a conversation with us. It's not scary.
Oh, we're nice.
You can reach out to us at housingforgood@mcphersonhc.org. You can leave us a review there. You can let us know what you think. And we would just love to hear from you. Have a great day.